Okay, how did we open our episodes?
Uh, what happens is I ask you a question or whatever, and then like we start talking, and then like eventually I derail the conversation into something funny, and then I like start the episode in like the middle of there, where we're just like goofing off about something, and then I'm like, "Come on, we got to stay serious.
All right.
Why don't you let us start?" And then you're like, "What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" But I cut out all of that, and then like you formulate like a question to ask, and then you say like, "Okay, so today we're gonna talk about Minecraft." But I cut out all that middle stuff, so it sounds like I'm like, "Hey, cut the shit." And then you're like, "Sir, yes, sir."
Hello, everyone. This is episode 2 of ReZero. We are covering Arc 3, and we will probably do either 1 or 2 more episodes on Arc 4. And yeah, Miles, why don't you start us off with telling us why you hated it?
Wait, okay, hold on a sec. This is arc
This is Arc
three,
3.
but we got to the end of season 2. Sorry, season 1.
Yes. So Arc
Okay,
1 was the first one in the capital. Arc 2 was in the mansion. This was Arc 3. And then Season 2 is Arc 4.
okay. You know what? This show's fine.
all that bravado earlier, and now
Yeah,
I have no
no,
complaints.
because listen. Throughout I'm scrolling back to our messages because I didn't when we watched these together. I didn't have a mic, so I had to write everything that I was thinking because like my roommate
Yeah,
was
all
over
your
and
bad
I
takes are written in stone forever.
yeah, and so I couldn't say like oh God, here comes Rem, let's go, you know, uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I wrote down. I was like, oh, this character's motivation is stupid. That character's motivation. Listen, I, everyone's not a winner. Uh, though the what's it called? Like the other contestants, royal contestants or whatever. I'm not going to pretend that those are amazing characters. Uh, Krush is one of them, right?
I like
And
Krish.
then there's
I like Krish
then
a
there's like
lot.
the you'll really doing politics
Yeah,
in this.
continue.
We're not doing politics in this show. And then like there's like Felt. I think that was the one who was like, if you vote for me, I'll kill all of you. Uh, then there was
Yeah,
like the one that was like the subtitles like implied her to be Southern or whatever.
yeah.
Uh, which yeah, like listen, I'm not gonna pretend that any of those were like super deep and in depth, and like the whole deal where they were like, well, you have to give something to me for me to want to help you. I was like, that's a little stupid because like if the white whale is attacking, he's probably going to attack you too. And like if even if this is supposed to be a metaphor for geopolitics, uh, if an alien was attacking the U.S., China would probably care a little bit. But
Well, let me clarify. The white whale
the
isn't attacking anyone. The white whale's just the white whale has been there for centuries and just kind
okay,
of
well,
appeared on random Persian
okay,
moons.
a bunch of people died, and whatever. I don't care. Uh,
Okay.
I say all of this to say that uh, it wasn't it wasn't disruptive to the story that maybe the motivations and the characterizations of like the different factions was a little thin, because what really mattered is you know Subaru overcoming this uh, mal maladapted attachment to Amelia where she can't do anything on her own and he has to insert himself into things, and it
Mhm.
went from him doing that and ruining everything to him still doing that but learning to channel that energy into something a little bit more helpful. Him getting himself into reckless things, and then him channeling his reckless energy into you know saving the day and being a hero and getting his recognition. If uh you know if I think that in like his first interaction with Krush and their negotiations was a little dumb and a little played out, whatever, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So, despite the fact that written in stone in these messages is me just like going in on this show and saying this sucks and I hate this and
Hmm.
why can't anime fans write realistic, not anime, why can't anime writers write like realistic conversations with women and stuff? Yeah, I actually liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. It made me think. Uh, I am excited to watch season two.
You had some criticisms of Subaru. Do you still stick to them?
So, while we were watching it,
Hmm.
I complained that ReZero was being too kind on Subaru. Uh,
Okay.
because, in my opinion, I thought that what he like his whole actions. I didn't think that his heroics were necessarily enough to warrant everyone being like, you have earned my respect. You're a good person, and whatever. But I have reevaluated my thoughts on that because I was thinking about the character Julius.
Yeah.
But we can get to that later.
Okay. So no complaints.
I don't like. I'm afraid of anime fans, man. I feel like if I give any complaint, they're like, well, actually,
No.
in this
You need to
thing,
do it for
no,
clickbait.
I
Where's the
don't
clickbait
have.
title?
I don't have real complaints, man. I don't like that. I don't like that Subaru is like his ultimate goal is like I want to lay on your chest and fondle your breasts and like take you away and put children in you. I'm like, God, come on. Why are you weird? Why can't you be normal? That's my complaint about Subaru. That's why I don't like it. You know what? That
That
okay.
is normal
Let's
aware.
start. Let's start this by pulling the veil back. You said, oh, Subaru is a critique of otakus. I don't want anything good to happen to Subaru because I hate terminally online people.
Okay.
I will never be happy knee jerk watching ReZero because I legitimately want to see Subaru fail at every point.
Okay. I mean, do you not think that character people deserve
To me, is to just see that continuously critiqued and punished for being the way it is. But I sort of realized that there's a wider point to maybe, in my opinion, again, Subaru's redemption was rushed along.
really?
Uh, yeah, I think that he sort of like the first time that he stopped screwing up, people were like, "You have acted honorably." But the more I think about it, I realize that there's a sort of a societal point there, which is that you can be a piece of shit, and you can be a shut-in and an otaku and fondle women's breasts and not be able to let Amelia make her own decisions and run into the royal hall and screw everything up. But really, so long as you can just focus on yourself and help other people and be a good person and not be perfect and not be perfectly well adjusted and still be really weird towards Julius and shit, so long as you can just contribute to society, like
Hmm.
Subaru does at the end, really that's all you have to do. And it reminded me that that's the kind of person that I strive to be. Because in real life, even though I say Subaru doesn't deserve redemption, that's me being a little bit of a hard ass. In real life, I like to think that, I'm forgiving and I let people forget who they were in the past, let bygones be bygones, and just face the next day. And I shouldn't let my ill will towards the people that Subaru represents, that sort of subsect of the internet, get in the way of my sort of internal morals and standard of forgiveness and, you know, meeting people where they are.
Well,
And
that's
so
unexpectedly
watching the
wholesome.
show sort of, yeah, so that's why I don't really have any major complaints, is because this last arc sort of like reminded me, hey, otakus also deserve that standard of respect that you extend to other people. And yeah, sure, Subaru's getting his happy, no, not his happy ending, but a bit of a happy ending is, maybe not perfectly deserved, but hey, all you got to do is do what you can, and that's all the world can ask of you. And so
Yeah,
that's why,
I mean,
at the end of
I
the day, I
think
don't have any problems with it.
I do think Subaru was actually like meaningfully clever when he finally figured out the solution. It was in episode 19, which for us was episode 5 or 4, um, and like the way that he aligned everyone's interests and took all the information he had gathered and correctly guessed everyone's motivations within a very short amount of time is actually meaningfully clever and actually like resulted like it's not like he did anything particularly heroic, although he acted more heroic towards the end. What he actually did was he very carefully nudged very powerful people in the direction of them doing the actual hard work.
Yeah, so that's why I began this whole spiel that I did with saying that it doesn't matter if the faction's motivations are a little flimsy, because the reason why when that initially happened I wasn't too impressed is because, frankly, Krush was like, you're gonna have to do more than just you know say something bad's gonna happen. You have to give me something I want. And like it seems like that entire first try, everyone kept beating Subaru over the head with, you have to give and take in negotiations. So when he said, I know, I'm going to offer you something you want in this negotiation, I was like, wow, nice job, Einstein. But that's like, it's more important, you're right, that he did that,
Mm-hmm.
and that he leveraged his energy into making decisions than it was that the decisions that he made were somehow like something I couldn't conceive of. It was a basic. You got to admit, he wasn't outstandingly clever. What he did was he was like, you can have rights to the mining here if you help me. That wasn't a Bismarck diplomatic web, but it was good enough for the story because it showed him redirecting his energy where he would normally scream into something. It just so happened that it was a little on the nose for me, and so when I first saw it, I was like, wow, you did it, Subaru.
Maybe the mining rights wasn't clever, but the white whale.
You gave the fascist money.
No. Krush to Krush the white whale matters a lot, and also to Wilhelm the white whale matters a lot. And super correctly guessing that this would matter a lot to them is, I mean, it requires a lot of.
You are right. The reason why I was skeptical to it at first was because that first go around, it seemed like they were just so heavily foreshadowing. You have to give and take in negotiations that it's like, yeah, I know that's what he's going to do. So it didn't feel like a moment of cleverness for me, but upon reflection, I sort of realized that it didn't have... This isn't Game of Thrones. It doesn't... I don't have to be left thinking about the intrigue of Subaru's plot.
Yeah, the politics is very much not the point. The point is, of course, Super.
The Royal Council is just the political compass. I mean, that's what we need to talk about.
It's actually kind of true. Like, you have every Enlightenment ideology represented there, just in more moderate.
More moderate, Felt be like.
Except for Felt and Priscilla.
Felt is me.
I know. I know.
All right. So what did you asked me to air out my grievances? I'm sure that you were waiting to dunk on me, but I came out here and I said, hey, you know what? ReZero actually made me think. So what did you actually want to talk about today?
All right. So
this was you want to hear the shonen. You wanted to hear the Shonen Watcher grovel at your feet.
If we had a Shonen Watcher here, that'd be pretty pog though.
Can we get it? Can we get guests and just instead of like well-known guests, just random people who watch certain animes?
Get a Demon Slayer fan in here.
Can we? But it's not about anime. We do like debating the conflict in Ukraine with a Shonen Watcher.
Okay, let's actually talk about ReZero now.
Yeah, let's start. Yeah.
So last time we were talking about the themes of isekai. We were talking about escapism, and we were talking about Emilia as like the model isekai heroine. What else were we talking about? Yeah. We were talking about how the idea of isekai, or like the main point, or I guess its main strength, is its ability to take a character who has kind of shitty life and then gives them a second chance, and then it's a story about at its core, it's a story about either redemption or adventure, and both of those are tapping into the idea of escapism. And so this point of Subaru in these arcs in this arc in particular, I mean, it was really taking. We said that Subaru earlier was a deconstruction of the isekai protagonist, and when we said deconstruction, we meant that it's portraying him in a more realistic light. And so this is really the realistic isekai protagonist. This is the realistic regular person who is good at nothing, thrown into the middle of a massive political conflict in a world that he does not understand, with powers at play that he does not understand. And when he starts fucking with them because he thinks he's he thinks he's a big shot, he thinks he's the hero of an isekai, things start going really poorly because he has no idea what he's doing, and he's not paying attention to anything. And so Subaru, as a deconstruction of this isekai protagonist, it's not strictly a subversion. We said that deconstructions are not strictly subversions, because although the trope is subverted in the fact that Subaru fucks up a bunch, he does eventually get his redemption, but it's a realistic redemption. It's Subaru starts paying attention, starts trying to actually understand what people want and what people actually desire, and once he starts applying himself towards paying attention to other people and paying attention to the world around him, he resolves that sort of issue that the series is critiquing with isekai protagonists, which is that they don't actually pay attention to the world around them.
Do you think that ReZero is a coming of age story?
Yeah, I do.
Because as you were talking, I sort of like, that idea came to my head, because there's, it's not traditional. Like when I think of like coming of age story, I think the most like famous recent examples remember that movie Boyhood that like followed a kid from like over 12 years of his life or whatever. That's like a very, it's like a very literal like coming of age story. Or Disney Channel movie Girl Turns 16. She's like, boys are icky, and then she meets a boy, and then she gets into trouble with the boy, and then she realizes how to be like healthy and normal and adult, and she loves her parents and all that stuff. That's the traditional coming of age story. But in ReZero, I think if we're gonna define coming of age stories as starting from a point of immaturity, and then through inner conflict, turmoil, and some external conflict, but mostly internal conflict, reaching maturity because of personal growth, and sort of letting go of some of that innocence in favor of maturity, that really does characterize what Subaru's character is supposed to be. Because his I'm a big shot is arrogance, but it's also innocence. The idea the idea that you can come into the world and
it's naivety.
Yeah, it's naivety, it's innocence. And he lets go of that innocence, which manifests itself as arrogance as his character is pushed to the brink. Him saying, I'm the big shot, this should be the part where I discover I have special powers in season 1, is ultimately the same sort, or episode 1, not season 1, is really it's the same characterization that creates his initial encounter with Krush, where he's just like screaming like, why won't you do what I'm telling you to do? The white whale is gonna the village is gonna get slaughtered. It's the same character trait, really. It's that innocence, it's that I should be calling the shot. He lets go of some of that in favor of maturity. Subaru's coming of age story.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can characterize a lot of anime as coming of age stories simply because there is a character conflict and all of the characters are late teenagers. But But
I
you
wonder
know,
why all the
it is
women are teenagers. Or
said all of
less.
the characters, not all the women. Jesus Christ.
All the women.
Can you relax? Can you not say it like that?
I have this.
Jesus
I
Christ.
have this
Leave
cool
that in the
mic
recording.
that I have this cool mic that I rented on. Like it can finally like pick up like dynamic audio range.
What was I saying? Hey, Isekai is kind of built for this because the idea of a second chance, just clean slate, taking your previous character and giving them a space where they can grow and a space where they can mature freely. That's kind of the point of Isekai, and it's also to an extent the point of coming of age stories. So I think they're kind of
Well, but
go hand in hand a little bit.
let's define, because I don't think it's enough to just say, hey, this thing is like this thing. Let's set some boundaries on that. I don't know enough isekai animes, but I know the non-Japanese representations of them. I think that a lot of those escapist narratives, while they again very heavily, there'll be a Venn diagram between them and coming of age stories. There are some escapist narratives which I think focus more on maybe redeeming character traits that are considered less cool in in the cool world. For some reason in my head is that movie Spy Kids, but like
Yeah.
like remember the one where they all go into like the video game world,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
escapist thing. It's not about a coming of age story there. It's about showing that like people are more than meets the eye, and that the kid who isn't very strong in real life is strong in the game or whatever, or the grandpa who can't walk is like a super cool robot in the game. And a more toxic version of that, I think, would be like a version of ReZero where Subaru just discovers that everyone finds him super hot and his personality isn't an issue. There's a delimiter here where the conflict won't allow Subaru to maintain that innocence. ReZero is never going to allow Subaru to succeed if he keeps that arrogance,
Right.
which we've determined is a manifestation of his innocence.
Right.
And so that's where I think there's the line between not every escapist thing is also coming of age, because there's a problem, and also they're all teenagers.
Okay. I think this goes back to what we were saying about Isekai largely being about escapism, and then ReZero like sort of deconstructing that. But when I said that Isekai and coming of age go hand in hand because of this second chance concept, I think the second chance concept is just what I like in Isekai, and it's what I think Isekai's strong point is. But yeah, the more classical point of Isekai is really fundamentally about escapism, and I don't think that sort of escapism that you described, which is very common in Isekai, but is not what I enjoy most personally. I don't think that is coming of age ever, really.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's not. So we're sort of bleeding into this idea. We're talking about ReZero and its themes and whatever. What's like? Can you fill me in on, I guess, how the anime normies talk about ReZero? Like one of my, because I don't pay attention to the dialogue about this stuff at all. I've never watched an anime YouTube video in my life. What do people think about ReZero? What do they say about it?
So I mean, the main interpretation is, I think, mostly building off this one video, ReZero is a masterpiece, fuck you, fight me, from Mother's Basement. It's and the interpretation he describes is that Subaru is Subaru is obviously an otaku who comes from the real world and is kind of a shitty person and doesn't know how to act properly, and has very false expectations of the isekai world once he gets there. But the point of ReZero as a whole is that Subaru is not just an otaku. He is a metaphor for every otaku, including the otakus in the audience. And so when he mistreats Emilia, when he doesn't listen to what Emilia is saying, when he breaks his promises to her, and when he gets in her way all the time because he thinks he's really cool, that is not just a commentary on Subaru, it's a commentary on how otakus act in real life. It's a commentary on how otakus view women, and they view their waifus as they view them very possessively, instead of treating them like actual people with actual desires and priorities. And so ReZero pretty boldly is critiquing its own audience and trying to show them, like, really, really painfully, how all of the things that they would do, all the things that they would, up until episode 12 that they would do, result in that one episode where Subaru's acting insanely cringe in front of all the royal candidates, and it gets, receives pretty much the ultimate consequence, which is Emilia walking out on him at that point.
So wait, you said that, and this is a legitimate question. You said that, like, they don't treat their waifus with respect. I thought that waifus weren't real.
I mean, like, the way that that otakus think of their waifus in anime, sort of the way that translates to how they treat women in real life, is kind
treat
of
women in real life. I thought that was the point. I'm not. This isn't a funny. I'm just like, is this a limited question? Is the point that ReZero is a critique of how otakus are treating women in real life, or how they think relationships work? Because I thought the whole point of otakus is that they're just, like, being weird towards women, and that, they aren't talking to them.
Yeah, it's how they think of women.
Okay. That was my.
Yeah.
That was the separation, because I was like, I thought waifus were just like Rem body pillow.
No, yeah, it's their conception of women and their conception of what a relationship with a woman would be like.
Okay. Heavy-handed Rem run away with me, but we have in our notes that we're going to talk about that later.
Okay, so there are a lot of ways. There are a lot of ways in which ReZero builds off this idea through all of the antagonists in Arc 3 and all the characters around Subaru in Arc 3. So we can start with talking about them. And I think a good place to start is with Beetlejuice, who was, the sort of the main antagonist.
Oh my God, his name is Beetlejuice.
What'd you think it was?
I've been calling him Betelgeuse.
Okay, to be fair, they do call him Betelgeuse, so
that's why, because it was like Betelgeuse. I was like, Betelgeuse.
Listen, you can call what you want. You can call him.
I was staring at his name in our notes, because I was like, how is he going to say this? I haven't heard it said out loud. I was calling him Sloth, and then you're like Beetlejuice, and I was like, oh my God.
I mean, it's an English word, like.
I've been calling him Betelgeuse.
You can call him that. I mean, all power to you, man.
I'm keeping Betelgeuse is funny.
Okay.
All right, keep going on about
what I don't know. What'd you think of Beetlejuice?
I imagine that whoever was voice acting him must have had like a bunch of fun, because that guy sounds like a really fun character to play.
Yeah.
I mean, what I can give him. Religious symbolism, heavy-handed. Isn't it interesting how he represents the 7 deadly sins, but oh my God, he has a gospel Bible and his haircut looks like a monk haircut? Oh my God, the Christians are the Satan. But that's, I mean, that's a little different. Though that was like I said, something that's going to be disproven in season 11. What?
Season 2.
Okay. Well, whatever. I mean, he's dressed up in Christian iconography, but he's the bad guy, and he's the sins. So there's, that's what I'm getting at. But that's a little different. what I thought was interesting, because when I first saw him, and I said this to you, when I first saw Betelgeuse on screen, and like he did his thing, I said to you, I was like, okay, so what is slothful about him? Because he seems to be really amped up on something.
Hmm. So you're asking me?
No, well, so I wanna let you answer that because I asked you that question and you didn't really answer it because you. I mean, there isn't a really easy answer to that if you haven't seen the rest of his characters. I want you to answer that, and then I'll tell you what I think as someone who was like, wait a second, he's not being very slothful.
So Beetlejuice indeed is not being very slothful, and this is for the same reason that he is obsessed with the idea of sloth. He thinks so. His entire shtick is his absolute devotion to the witch, right? And so he he thinks that acting acting in accordance with what's written in the gospel, um, and doing whatever he can to carry out the ordeal, which I guess was an attempt to resurrect the witch with Amelia's body. Um, he thinks that applying himself to this is what's the word he uses? The opposite of sloth. It's the opposite of sloth, and so he is indeed very not slothful from this perspective, but that is at the same time kind of the point, because Beetlejuice is thematically the logical extreme of Subaru, because Beetlejuice's love for the witch and obsession with the witch's love is an amped up version of Subaru's obsessive love for Amelia, especially towards the beginning of Arc 3. And so when Beetlejuice thinks he's being not slothful, let me rephrase this. Beetlejuice attempts to be not slothful in the same way that Subaru attempts to not be slothful in the beginning as well. For example, in the scene where Subaru is sparring with Wilhelm, trying to become physically stronger, this is what Subaru thinks is not being slothful, but he is actually being slothful because he's not understanding what he actually needs to do. Becoming physically stronger is just completely not related. He's just trying to make himself feel better. And in the same way, Beetlejuice does a lot of, applies himself to a lot of things, but nothing he actually does means anything. And we see this at the very end when he enters Subaru's mind and the witch rejects him, because nothing he has ever done has actually been what the witch wanted, just like nothing Subaru ever did was what Amelia wanted.
No, I'm glad that is the conclusion that you came to, because that is, I think, the correct thing. There is what does the Bible say about idle hands?
What does it say?
So this isn't the Bible, but there's the famous quote about idle hands that what happens to idle hands? Well, Satan will find mischief for your idle hands to do.
Mm-hmm.
Action without point is just a vehicle for it to be corrupted. If I am just I just thought about our in our Minecraft episode. I had that the logical extreme about why there can't be a automated player in Minecraft, because it would just
Mm-hmm.
be a TNT cannon attached to a piston bolt.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just have a thing just throwing an explosive at a wall, it's doing something, but it can be, angled to whoever you want, and that can cause harm. And that's a very on-the-nose example of, idle action is a vehicle for, Satan is a little bit too, polemical for my tastes. But that idea that idle action is the problem, that, sloth is idle action. And I agree with you a lot when you say that Sloth's love for the witch is an idle love, the way that Subaru's is for Amelia, going through the motions, idle hands, that Satan can find mischief for. What
Mm-hmm.
Sloth helped me sort of come up with, my sort of realization that I was being too hard on Subaru, because Sloth, I think, shows through his outlandish, overacted self that it doesn't matter how much you're doing, it matters where you're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, Sloth's love is 1,000 for the witch is 1,000 times more devoted than, you know, I think uh, uh, between two people in a healthy marriage.
Yeah.
But think about how much better that energy is channeled in a healthy marriage compared to Sloth and the witch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's just another, when you said a logical extreme of Subaru, I think this is, Subaru with his boundless young energy, what he's bound to become if he doesn't focus himself in just, again, doing what he can do. Because that ultimately is what I think the theme of ReZero is everyone needs to do what they can do. And I'm going to keep saying this because every single side character that I think I want to talk about really feeds into this idea that what ReZero is telling you is that every person should just focus on doing what they can do. And there's a reason why I keep bringing this up.
So you can see this more. You see this even more. This idea that Beetlejuice is the logical extreme of Subaru. In the beginning of episode 16, I don't know what that was in what we watched. It's where Emilia. Wait, is it? It's not episode 16. It's episode 17, maybe. But either way, it's they're in the snow, and Emilia's dead because Subaru killed her. And then Beetlejuice shows up, and that's when he tells Subaru. I think it's when he tells Subaru that he's going to use Emilia's body to insert the witch into it, so that he can animate Emilia's dead body. And then there's a shot where he takes his unseen hand and, tries to place it all over Emilia's body and tries to grope her. And, this is the logical extreme of the sexual fetishes of an otaku, right? In all of the slobbery, manic mannerisms of Beetlejuice. The other thing I wanted to talk about in regards to Beetlejuice is I think Rem's love for Subaru that she gained at the end of Arc 2 after Subaru saved her a bunch of times. I think it's kind of a foil to Beetlejuice's love for the witch and Subaru's love for Emilia, because those two loves are both kind of corrupted. And Rem's love for Subaru is supposed to be uncorrupted, in the sense that what Rem actually does for Subaru is she supports him and listens to him and tries to help him. She's always following his lead, and this is also unhealthy to an extent, but in a very different way, in the complete opposite way. But in terms, what?
Rem is very unhealthy in her relationship to Subaru.
I mean, it's healthier than Beetlejuice's love for the witch. Okay, so in this context, it's like I'm only talking about in this context. I mean, yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think it's one of the more unhealthy relationships.
Yeah, it definitely is. But in this specific context, the way that Rem acts in Subaru's favor is completely different from how Subaru acts in his own favor with regards to his relationship with Emilia, and doesn't actually listen to her and doesn't support her in anything. He just supports himself and tries to be around Emilia even when he shouldn't and when it's against her desires. So I think Rem's love is kind of a foil to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I just the only reason I was thinking that is because I remember we after our first episode or before, I think we were reading this like really dumb article that felt like it was written by an AI, and it was like, top 10 reasons why fans love Amelia and top 10 reasons why fans love Rem, and it was like Rem's love for Subaru is just so wholesome, and then I watched this and I was like, no, that's not wholesome. This is uh like a 18-year-old girl in college falling for a 30-year-old and getting turned into a
Why
slave
is it
who
like
can't think
that?
for herself.
That is a bizarre analogy, but okay.
No, no. I mean, the funny thing with it, I don't think that Rem's love for Subaru is necessarily that healthy because it represents an extreme level of apathy in the face of danger. I feel like Rem's love for Subaru is the strongest in times of strife, but her love isn't
Yeah,
always trying
just
to
look at
push him forward.
hmm?
Yeah, I would say her love isn't always really trying to push him forward. Sometimes it's just, trying to maintain a state of apathy is, I guess, the word that's in my head.
Well, where I think you're going with this is if you look at the I think there are two times when Rem just sacrifices herself so that Subaru can live. And like this is just like her decisions in those moments make absolutely no sense. Like when she abandons him and goes to the mansion, and the time when she jumps out to fight the white whale. Like there's not really a great reason why she would just completely sacrifice herself and not try to work out something with Subaru in those moments, but she does anyway. And this is because she's just so attached to the idea of helping Subaru that she completely forgets her own self. It's the complete opposite problem with Subaru and Amelia. And there is this is kind of obvious if you know, because there's a side story. There's a set of side stories for each of the seven sins, and it's like an alternate timeline where he went away with Rem, and it's called the Sloth Arc.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah, Rem is kind of throughout Arc 3 the temptation of Sloth, the temptation to just abandon everything, because she's there.
Who is the opposite of Sloth, if not Wilhelm?
Exactly. Would you like to talk about him, since you seem to know what you're talking about?
No, I don't know. I mean, Wilhelm's cool. He like fights with a sword and is an old guy. It's funny.
Yeah, we talked about the scene where Subaru is sparring with him, and Wilhelm tells him to just give it up. It's useless, because Wilhelm knows better than anyone that Subaru is just not applying himself in the right places, and so because he's not applying himself in the right places, he's not going to go anywhere. Because when he was a younger, when he had his wife, what was her name, Teresia, when he was going after Teresia, he kind of made an ass of himself. But the way he redeemed himself is by practicing at the thing that would actually impress her, the thing that would actually mean something to her, which in that case was swordsmanship, because Teresia was the master swordsman. But in Subaru's case, it is not. So he knows that you need to apply your ambitions in the correct place, and so he's sort of the foil to Subaru's sloth in this arc. What do you want to say?
All I'll say about him is, what did I say every time Wilhelm came on screen when we were watching it?
I said, "Yo, Wilhelm." Yo, Wilhelm's back, my man.
There was another.
There was another.
Yeah. Well, what I said was, I was like, man, I wish I was just watching a Wilhelm show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think it's what's it called? Perspective matters.
Mm-hmm.
The perspective of stories totally matters. And when Wilhelm is on screen, you notice that he kind of like takes over the camera. Like he gets his own flashbacks and everything's focused on him, and he does his cool sword tricks. but it's still Subaru who's the main character, whose eyes we are seeing the world through.
Mm-hmm.
It is in service of the idea that you should apply yourself to from the viewpoint of someone who can't. Because otakus are no master sword fighters. Watch someone who's a master and watch them go through their stuff and live their life and conquer their arcs. And it doesn't always have to relate back to you. Right?
Right.
It sort of helps that, moving away from that self-centered view that manifests itself in arrogance that comes from innocence that I keep building on as I continue talking at least about the things that I had prepared. Part of Subaru's growing up and the otaku's the Subaru's critique of growing up is acknowledging that there are other people who are cooler than you. Wilhelm is way cooler than Subaru, and you cannot change my mind.
You know who else is way cooler than Subaru?
Who?
Reinhardt and Julius.
Julius.
So Reinhardt.
Julius, yeah.
I'll start with Reinhardt because he is simple because he doesn't get a lot of screen time. Reinhardt. Reinhardt is in episode 12, Subaru goes in front of everyone and declares himself to be Emilia's knight, right? And of course he does this in front of all of the knights of Lagunica, including Reinhardt. And Reinhardt, we know from Arc 1, is literally just a bastion of open-hearted kindness and selflessness and, courtliness and knightliness, right? And so while Subaru is falsely declaring himself to be Emilia's knight and not acting knightly at all, we see in the background the pinnacle of knightliness, and the contrast between them is in that room illuminates Subaru's incompetence. And then Julius does this as well, although Julius is somewhat flawed because he's a bit more prideful. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Well, I brought up Julius at the beginning for my whole thesis that I've been doing in the breaks between your speaking.
Yeah.
Julius and Subaru have their shit. But in the end, and it sort of pokes fun at the fact that Subaru is more mad at Julius than Julius is at Subaru, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Julius's character was when I first sort of came around to Subaru, because he was that example of the idea that it isn't hard for Subaru to overcome who he was. It's not useful for Julius to hold Subaru to the immature, arrogant asshole that he was back in the capital city after they fought next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, you could say it's because in the horrors of war, the past is forgotten. But I don't think that's the method. That's the message of ReZero. I don't think ReZero is supposed to be a war narrative. I think that even though the white whale fight was dramatic, I think what this is more is that, hey, most people have a short memory, and Subaru Julius isn't. How much time does Subaru spend scowling at Julius and thinking about him, saying, "Him, oh my God"? It's almost there's a lot of moments where Subaru considers Julius and sort of fights with him without even Julius knowing about it.
Yeah. By the way, do you remember why he's angry towards Julius?
Because he hits on Amelia or whatever.
Yeah, he kissed her hand.
Yeah, kissed her hand. Yeah. Oh, but that's the deal. Is that as he gets over it, that's where I think that message of ground yourself in the real world, because frankly, it's not that deep that he kissed Amelia's hand. And also, even though you guys had a fight, it's a sort of an expression of social anxiety, kind of, that you can never face him again. I mean, he wasn't really acting, anxious, like afraid to, but isn't that kind of, I mean, we're both socially anxious people. That when there's been a problem with someone, it's hard to face them again,
Mm-hmm.
even though they probably don't care. But that's what Julius's side character is representing, is that Subaru has built in his head, like I'm sure many otakus have, this entire reason why he can never face him, and these issues, they come out of really an anxious energy. And at the end of the day, really, so long as you kind of just fight the white whale and do what you can, Julius doesn't care too much. He's like, yeah, you know what, I still hate you, but
Yeah.
you're fine.
Yeah. I think you're
We can be
right.
friends.
I think you're right, and I think he also, in that way, represents the maturity that Subaru doesn't have to just recognize your mistakes in the past and then move on from them. Because Julius did make a mistake in challenging Subaru to a duel. It was kind of immature of him, but he recognized that mistake and moved past it, and he wants Subaru to too.
What Julius really represents is touching grass. I mean, if you want to memify it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Julius has touched grass.
Let's talk about how to write a protagonist that is intensely flawed. What are your general thoughts on this? Let's just lay out our philosophy towards this concept.
Well, as I said in my sort of heart-to-heart earlier, I am susceptible to hating protagonists and wanting to see them suffer. No, but generally, I like writing protagonists who are deeply flawed, because I think it is an opportunity to explore the difference between a happy ending and a healthy ending, and that, remember, the healthy ending is not always the happy ending, and that's something only afforded through having bad protagonists and people with realistic flaws, because not everyone can be friends, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's my general philosophy towards it, is I like it because I think it uniquely enables a very interesting conflict resolution that doesn't come if everyone overcomes their flaws.
So, in the course of writing a flawed protagonist, it is not usually the case, but sometimes it is the case that their flaws, when portrayed, will directly annoy the viewer. For example, we have Subaru being intensely cringe pretty much all the time. And so, cringe is not pleasurable to watch. However, there is no other way to write a cringe character other than to characterize them as being cringe and showing the audience that they're cringe. And so how do you think you would resolve this contradiction, philosophically?
I don't think it's a contradiction at all. I mean, it's one of the most interesting things, and it's something that's very I like it a lot in video games, because video games forces you to pilot a character, right? Force you to see see the world through the eyes of that character, right? Mm-hmm. Shows and movies have a little bit of leeway in that, because one character is not your vehicle for interacting with the world. If you get like me and you start to really just hate Subaru, you can kind of just disconnect from Subaru.
Mm-hmm.
But there is still something when the protagonist is the person who takes you through the world, and then all of a sudden the protagonist starts doing stuff that you don't want to do. So long as you are sufficiently invested in the world, that takes the internal conflict of the protagonist and actually places it inside of you, because all of a sudden those issues that cringe is not just him being an idiot, it's also sort of him standing in the way of the progression of the world, the progression of the story, the resolution of the story.
I mean, he's not only derailing the world, he's derailing the story.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He's standing in the way of it.
Right.
And so for that, so long as it's not overdone, it's a really good way to bring in kind of like a little like a higher level conflict to to a portion of your story. Again, as long as it's not overdone, because if it gets to the point where this guy's just being a complete idiot all the time, you just check out and you stop caring.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start to feel like the character in front of you is too much of a renegade, you start to get scared of their actions. You don't like what's going on. It takes the tension in the world and puts it sort of in your own heart. And I think that that's if done well, can be controversial. Cough cough. I'm not gonna even go there. Can be controversial.
Cough cough Mushoku Tensei.
I was gonna say cough cough. Actually,
that was bad for not related reasons.
no, actually, that was good.
Okay, listen.
For saying that.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about it. Not related.
Yeah, let's just leave it. All that to say that please don't be cringe. When done right, can draw the audience into a story because it leverages their own personal investment and ultimate desire to. It adds wanting to see the story progress to wanting to see the protagonist succeed, and the more reasons you can have your audience want to see the protagonist succeed, the better.
Yeah, true. So I was in a philosophy of art class last semester,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked a lot about unethical art. So art that has unethical content or supports unethical ideas. And I think that the issue of unethical content in art is very similar to the issue of writing a bad protagonist like this. Because in both cases, the only way to appreciate the art itself is to sort of step outside and accept that there is a story that needs to be told, and your opinion on it can only do the story harm. And so my perspective on this is sort of that you have to kind of suspend your disbelief. You have to kind of accept that Subaru is being cringe. You have to acknowledge this, and then you have to see what the story does. And in everything, you accept whatever you don't like and see where the story goes. And if it's not fulfilling in the end, then it's not fulfilling in the end. Then it was written poorly. But I find that in every case where there is a bad protagonist or there's unethical content, if you just really think about what is happening in the story, 9 times out of 10, you really get a lot out of it.
Yes, this is true. I mean, unethical art, bad things. Because I remember when you were doing, you had like your project where you had to make like a museum of unethical art or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I kept asking you. I was like, so what? Why did Monogatari put 5-year-old in the bathtub?
Listen, she's 500.
Why did
5?
Well, the reason I say this is because it is said that World War One. Bear with me. World War One. Why are you laughing? World War One is what really made Tolkien's work great, because he was in the trench. He was in the trench. Saw humanity at its most savage. Basically, there's the Churchill quote that we can no longer pretend to not be savages, because the only thing that we didn't partake in is cannibalism and human sacrifice. But what is omnipresent through the Lord of the Rings is that there must be something worth fighting for, right?
Yeah.
Because if a man has seen humanity like that, he knows that there are reasons why we keep going on. Because if people can be that terrible, I'd kill myself. Unless
Right.
I knew that there was something worth living for. Subaru gets disemboweled. He sees people slaughtered. He dies a lot.
Mm.
And yet the world keeps bringing him back to life. And Subaru keeps going at it, knowing that it's almost like this universe is designed to kill him off in convenient places.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that the powers that be must have something they feel is worth preserving, and Subaru must have something about the world that he feels is worth preserving. I don't have an answer to this question, but I want to ask you, because you have a much deeper appreciation, I think, for this media property than I do. It's starting to grow, but you really love ReZero. What about the world to Subaru is worth saving? And is that different from what about the world itself to you is worth saving?
You know, it's not that it doesn't sound that profound, but I think it's pretty clear that what Subaru thinks is worth saving is just Emilia's smile. It's that idea of such. Let me think of a way to not phrase this really cringely.
No, be cringe. This is a cringe question. Be cringe.
Okay. I mean, it's Subaru sees Emilia smiling, and conceives of this as like the perfect innocence, the perfect, something that really needs to be cherished, something that needs to be preserved in the world. And Subaru sees this dark world and only wants that innocence to be protected. I mean, it is a little bit, it is from a large scale view. It is kind of the idealization of what an otaku wants, which is for waifus to be real. And in kind of a similar way, Subaru, in a wholesome way, wants Emilia's, innocent waifu-ness to be realized. He wants her to just be that carefree, open-hearted, innocent person that she is in her inside, but that kind of person that she has to shun away sometimes when things get hard. And so at the end of the day, Subaru wants to save Emilia, but he also wants to save the ideal of innocence being able to live.
God,
Thoughts?
I wish women were real. No, I don't have. I mean, I don't have any thoughts on this. I hadn't really thought about it enough, and won't be able to say anything with the knowledge I have and the time that I have. But I was struck when I was thinking about what we're going to talk about for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That element that there has to be a reason for Subaru to keep going, and there has to be a reason for Subaru to not just die, right?
Yeah.
And so I could spend time pontificating about what the in-story reasons are, because really the in-story reason is, well, Subaru has to stop the whatever and the witch and Emilia and the 7 deadly sins and whatever the problem is, but really it's because it's really obfuscating its main plot, ReZero, or main conflict. I think the more pressing question is exactly why, to you, is this world worth holding on to? And that was the question I was interested in hearing the answer to.
Nah.
More so than the real reason.
Nah, it's the world is not worth keeping aware.
Very true. Very true.
As for
Inshallah, Vladimir Putin will end it all.
Inshallah, World Season 3 will be cancelled.
Inshallah, the animators for World Season 3 will unionize and Crunchyroll will cancel.
Okay.
Upload this image for Crunchyroll to instantly die. Solidarity forever, Pete Seeker.
As for your question of why the world thinks Subaru is worth saving, that is something we can talk about after season 2.
If Subaru is the chosen one, I'm going to kill my entire family with a 9mm Beretta.
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure anyone knows yet.
Family, please go into hiding.
Alright, you wanted to talk about Sisyphus again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about Sisyphus again.
It said that Sisyphus.
What is... You're giving me shit for beginning my sentence with "it is said."
No, I don't give you shit. It's funny. I like
It's like maybe... I started laughing and I was like...
It rubs me the right way.
Rem rubs you the right way, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Anyway. I know what he means, aware.
Okay, Sisyphus.
No. Okay, so Sisyphus. We've shoehorned existentialism into all the things that we talk about, but in this case, there really is something to talk about here. The story of Sisyphus. For those of us who don't know, Sisyphus was a highwayman, a bad dude, and the gods cursed him to roll a boulder up a hill, and the second that he gets there, it rolls all the way back down. Mm-hmm. And of course, one can only look at Subaru rolling this boulder of Amelia's smile up a hill, only to run into the Bowl Hunter and roll all the way back down. You might say, well, he doesn't roll all the way back down. He has restart checkpoints. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It is a matter of, him reaching his goal and not. When he has to restart, it's not like, well, look at how far I've come. He's always struggling. It's a constant state of struggle. So I still think it is apt to apply Sisyphus here.
Yeah, it is.
What Albert Camus says, which is interesting when he was sort of defining absurdism, is that, one, the reason why Sisyphus is tragic is because it implies Sisyphus is conscious. If when we watch if we were to watch an ant roll a grain of sand up a hill only for it to fall back down, or when we watch that video of the raccoon try and wash his cotton candy and it goes into the water and then disappears and the raccoon gets upset, it doesn't really feel like much of a tragedy because the ant and the raccoon are not humans. Well, they are both conscious, but they're not as cognizant as we are, and so it's more funny. The fact that Sisyphus, his thing was torture, is because Sisyphus was conscious. Camus is interested in Sisyphus when he is marching down the mountain after the stone, because why follow, right?
Yeah.
After the first time, why follow?
Yeah.
I'm sure you can see the ReZero thing there.
Why not give in to sloth?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of it's kind of like if you wanted to draw the analogy perfectly, it's like Subaru is pushing Amelia up the hill. And then Amelia rolls back down. But he keeps doing it because he finds meaning in saving Amelia. Right.
Now, then what Camus goes on to say is that this task is really absurd. What the hell? You're pushing up a boulder, but it can never get to the top? That's not how physics works. Try again, Greek gods.
Okay.
Ben Shapiro
watches ReZero.
Just Ben Shapiro and then 5 seconds of silence.
You should keep that in the edit.
It's an absurd task, and by going down, Sisyphus must then acknowledge the futility of it. And once he does that, and once he resigns himself to push up the boulder, Camus says he accepts the fact that this task is completely absurd. It is so absurd, in fact, because life is absurd, because none of this shit makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Life is just a continued battle against the randomness of the world. And once you realize that, you realize that you are as powerful as the gods.
True.
But you don't become power crazy because you realize that the world is absurd. And the reason why I was thinking about that is because I notice that while Subaru does passively commit suicide and say you have to kill me and stuff, Subaru doesn't abuse his ability or think that he's a god any more so than he is arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because Subaru knows that his task is absurd. He is just living life in a random-ass world. And when he dies, he comes back to life, and there is no end goal. He just gets to a point, and then fate has just decided that it's over. And he rolls back down to the last save point. And yet he keeps pushing, because as he pushes, he is master of his world. But he is not master because he's gone mad with power. He is master because he and he alone is the architect of his mobility. And I think you know where I'm going with this, because what have I kept saying about what ReZero is telling otakus to do?
To do something.
To keep moving.
Yeah.
It is this acceptance of the absurdism of the world and the idea that you are master of your world so long as you push the boulder, which ultimately forms the foundation for the moral point that ReZero makes, which is that so long as you just move, it doesn't matter what Julius thinks, or if Amelia's mad at you right now, or if Rem has disappeared, or if Betelgeuse keeps biting off your fingers, or if the Bowel Hunter went away and hasn't come back and I'm still confused, where is the Bowel Hunter, or if Felt says if you vote for me I'm going to kill all of you. So long as you keep pushing your boulder, you're the master of your own fate. And that is the analysis of ReZero insofar as I've experienced in Season 1. And that's why I wanted to talk about Sisyphus.
Yeah, in terms of constructing meaning in the world, finding meaning in the world, I think that's certainly true. Everything you said is very true. You need to keep moving towards what you think your goal is, and as long as you can find meaning in something, then as long as you keep going for that one something, you are the master of your whole world, because nothing else matters. That one thing that you are moving towards is your entire world, and therefore you're in total control of your relationship to it. Although there is the side commentary, which is that you can keep trying to push for this goal, but if you are not actually pushing towards this goal, if you are not thinking about where you're going and making sure that you are actually pushing towards this goal, it will all be in vain anyway.
Exactly. But that's
Right.
the thing, is that when you're master of your world, when you put your energy into whatever you feel like, that is a manifestation of you going mad with power because you're the master of your world. Is it not thinking that, well, I'll just learn
Right.
how to fight with a sword until I'm better than Wilhelm?
Right, you become Beetlejuice.
There is that's the core difference, is you get you gain that power over your world when you accept the absurdism of it. Subaru's condition is fucking buck wild.
But wild.
But lonely people keep pushing the boulder. That's what I've been doing. It's been working out for me. It's working out for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.